Fabio, I'm curious in terms of globally crafting these vaccine standards. It's come to the WHO, and they've been sort of drafting standards for a while. It's also been mentioned by like the GU, or the G7, the EU, and other bodies. Where are we at in terms of drafting some global vaccine passport standards?
So I mean, we are not too far from block zero. I mean, that's the reality. Probably we are way better ahead with the vaccination itself than the ability to prove the vaccination for purpose of the traveling. So what we foresee is that this will develop through economic hubs. So Europe will develop something, and then the economic surroundings of Europe will adopt this because of the economic power of Europe. So this will be logical for the business to adopt this so it will be driven by the business. Now, the slower moving wheel are the governments, and unfortunately, this is opening a new wave of one to many. If you look from the perspective of one government, if you look, the world is a many to many, so 200 to 200, so it gets a very big number of potential agreements that needs to be in place to mutually recognize this whatever standards will be adopted. Now it took decades for the whole visa and visa exemption and visa on entry and ESTA to be standardized, so that a piece of paper like our passport is being accepted. I don't expect it will last so long, but if we look, the progress at the moment is very little. So the problem is complex itself, and then it's further complicated, I think, by the political agenda that somewhere is popping up in the country. So there are social or political agendas that are driving for more integration, more safety versus openness versus other areas. So this is creating also a different appetite for these bilateral agreements to be in place, or the threshold is different in different countries.
I agree what Fabio just described in terms of some of the hubs will most likely to drive, but I would also argue that in addition to the nation states, there's another layer of the reality of our digital life today, which is the digital state. The digital state means, the users of large tech companies that overlay, that don't fall into the natural, borders of different countries. So with the Apple's announcement, adopting smart health cards, and I think it will mean that smart health cards compatible will become very important standard for every country. And I think right now, every country still, to Nick's point, there's a trust, they're still considering, but often to focus on the front end in terms of which app they should use, right? But if we approach this as the world really needs this kind of public digital infrastructure as public good, then I think sensible governments will start to see, okay, if Apple is using smart health card, how many Apple users, iPhone users in our country, right? And that will become, for sure, one standard that you cannot ignore. So I think with combination of nation state and digital state is what I see, how the standard will evolve. That's why we, at the Commons Project, we punch above our weight. We could not wait for somebody else to set a standard. So we've been working very hard with Microsoft and Mayo Clinic, etc., to develop and promote smart health card as a standard, because we know if we just build an app, provide the world, how many apps do you have to build, right? You have to provide the true ecosystem and digital infrastructure. So even if there are multiple solutions out there, the multiple solutions can talk to each other. and reduce all the hassles for end users.
Fabio's point though, if it's great that everybody had this information on their phone, but unless another country is willing to accept that information, it doesn't matter what we've done. And that is the long pole in the tent. It is this mutual recognition between countries that takes time. It's not technology, it's not standards, it is that piece that's missing, and that takes time. And we hope it happens faster. But right now, technology was the only reason. We'd be flying already. Like when you look at aviation, there's other things obviously beyond aviation, but what my responsibility is airlines, and international travel can resume if technology was the only thing standing in the way.
We see and we serve multiple actors around the ecosystem that will need to align, because you have the airports, the government, the security agencies, let alone the labs, the pharmas, and they are lying in the middle because they are the broker or the messengers in all the complexity. So to add to this discussion, what I hope it will happen, it will start simple. I would guess that the more we can keep it simple, meaning having just the vaccination data, which batch is it and when it happened, and maybe some tests, which again is if you are vaccinated, it becomes less critical to some extent. Then the threshold of acceptance or the appetite to accept a digital standard bilaterally between countries will be faster.
That's interesting. Nick, I'm just curious, building off of that, like what Fabio said in terms of it'll start bilaterally, do you see certain parts of the world sort of opening up global travel quicker than other parts? I know before in Asia, we were maybe more optimistic 6 months ago that we might be traveling by now, but now it seems like Europe or something will be moving a bit faster. Where do you see travel sort of restarting?
Europe is we've already seen travel in Europe. Europe acts somewhat like a domestic market in a way, depending on from one country to another, and not referring to EU as domestic, but we are seeing international travel, so to speak, within the EU. North America won't be far behind. It's a question of ironing out some of these details that both Fabio and Jen had just spoken about. How does that work? How do governments feel comfortable in the US? How do we make sure that individuals in the US are not disenfranchised when they travel? Because the digital stuff we're talking about, it does not exist in most states like they do. I'm in Canada. I do have an electronic version of my the minute I got my first jab, and other countries have done that already, but not every country has done it. And to Fabio's point, not everybody's ready to share it. So but back to your question, yeah, Europe will be first. North America is there. The domestic market in North America is as strong as it's ever been. Not Latin America, South America. And you guys are probably last, unfortunately. It seems that the conservative nature of Asia is showing its true colors, and for good reason. We're not a political organization. We are also a not-for-profit organization as well, and we're not into why governments are making decisions they're making. We just want to be ready when they do make the decisions, start flying again. And so I think that's the order it will take. I mean, we also had suggested that it'll be sort of vacation travel, family travel begin with. That's what we're going to see, and there's a lot of pent-up demand for that. And in business travel, it remains to be seen how we rebound after all this. Because look what we're doing now. When was the last time you had a face-to-face event? Things have changed, and that will change the way we do. We may not travel as much as we did business-wise in the future. Maybe we all go back to the way we were. I don't know. But we certainly know that that's going to take a little bit longer than going to see mom and dad or going to the beach somewhere.
That's interesting. Yeah, that we might not go exactly back to our old habits. But I do think one of the concerns now that Nick mentioned that places like Europe, the US will be opening up quicker. There are also wealthier places that have had more access to vaccine supplies. And I think the head of the WHO said yesterday that I think 44% of the global vaccine supplies have been taken by wealthier countries, and the lowest income countries have had zero. I guess, Jennifer, I'm curious, how is the Common Pass kind of addressing these concerns that vaccine passports or these platforms might be exacerbating these inequalities?
Yeah, that's why we cannot, to be honest, because most of the vaccine distribution is conducted by nation. US is a little bit different, right? US is distributed by Walmart, Walgreens, which we work with them as well. But for example, here in Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, Canada, etc., the vaccine distribution is done by the government. So for us to ingest, talking to one party to ingest the vaccine records is much easier process than, you have to work with multiple labs in different countries. We're talking about thousands of labs, right? However, we cannot give up on the testing, capability in Common Pass, because, probably most people don't know about this, but Common Pass first started in East Africa. We use Common Pass for truck drivers to cross borders, right? And I think the global vaccine distribution, especially vaccine distribution to the global south, is particularly problematic.
Brought up a lot of really interesting points there. And I guess one of the things I'm interested in, Nick, I know you're also working on the sort of the cargo side of the vaccine distribution. And so are you seeing do you think the amount of deliveries will be drastically different in the second half of this year in terms of maybe equalizing some of the vaccine access globally?
Well, UNICEF, we work with UNICEF, COVAX, the World Health Organization. We've been focused on the procedural side of things. There was a lot of concerns around the supply chain and how, especially the cold chain aspects of moving these vaccines around the world, in particular in places in nations like Africa, where to be challenged. And so we've run, I think, version 5 of the only real guidance material in terms of how to move this stuff around. So a lot of our focus has been on not so much the geopolitical issues of which countries have been buying it and who's supplying it, but more about when we do get to the point of moving it, how do we move it safely to make sure that we don't lose it, because that would be really sad. It's something like if we weren't ready to move this stuff around. Fortunately, we've not seen that many issues in terms of the movement of the vaccine from one country to another. We are seeing it ramping up. Certainly our cargo supply chain is very busy. It's about the only area in the industry that we actually can promote. And today we came out and illustrated we're 12% above now at 2019 levels. So it's growing. Part of that is pharmaceuticals for sure. It's a large portion of it. Should we be doing more? Of course, I think we all believe that. We all know that too. And so, but we also know that the US is an example. I think they're at 52%. Canada now, I think, is above close to 70% first jab for 40 and over. The UK is at a certain point. So it's just natural that once these countries reach this point, whether it's right or wrong, they will be in a position to share more than they were in the past.